Howdy, folks, and welcome to Moose Podcast number 305. How you folks doing? I know a bunch of you are doing great because I had incredibly good fortune, really great time with a bunch of you at the Bedford Photo Expo in Little Rock this past weekend. It was fantastic. I can't thank you folks for enough for just a great time the entire time. I mean, wow, we had some great shooting and storytelling and just simply enjoying the revelry of being together as photographers. And you were so gracious and kind. And well, I just can't thank you folks enough for that really marvelous event. Same time, I want to thank my good sponsors for the podcast, Bedford Camera, bedfords.com, who were the hosts and facilitators of the really marvelous photo expo there in Little Rock. Got to see and watch firsthand the folks at Bedford take care of all these really talented and passionate photographers, getting them the gear they need. It was just, wow. It was a marvelous event. And Bedfords, I can't thank you enough for, bringing me out and for having that great time and all you folks. Well, today's topic, or this week's topic, actually comes from one of the presentations there at the Photo Expo Little Rock. Robert had a great presentation. And it was one that, if you're a podcast listener, you could relate to, because it was really, Robert had geared it towards the inner self, the inner photographer. Not about the gear, but about the person. So today's topic is it comes from Robert. Knowledge is not skill. And you think about it, and I am one who promotes knowledge a lot. If you listen to the podcast, you go to the website, I often say knowledge is power. And it is power. But it wasn't until when Robert was talking and he said, knowledge isn't skill, that I realized that knowledge is kind of a two-edged sword. And that sometimes, even though it could be really sharp, it's not a real fine line. And it seems, and from listening to what was being said, that some photographers acquire knowledge and they think they then have the skill base in which to go forth and be successful. Now, here's part of this whole simple two words that really kind of got me thinking, is that, that knowledge gives you the power and the confidence to go out with what you have acquired knowledge about and then exercise it, use it, put it to work in your efforts. But the thing is that knowledge by itself, gives you that power, that confidence. But then you've got to add or marry or accentuate or bolster something to that knowledge for it to actually become an action that is successful. So a couple, many people have said it, if you own a race car, it doesn't make you a race car driver. If you own a plane, it doesn't make you a pilot. If you own a camera, it doesn't make you a photographer. And if you own knowledge, it doesn't make you skillful. Now, skillful isn't the end goal either, which is kind of an interesting twist to this. But knowledge is the basis in which you start to become skillful, which then allows you to express your passion. And all this is working towards that successful, which is still up the ladder a few rungs. So what is knowledge? What is knowledge? Well, knowledge is something that typically a spark ignites the quest for knowledge. And in that quest, we start finding and massing that knowledge. And as photographers, that knowledge is really broad. It's just not understanding that aperture is a whole, that it's bigger or smaller. Shutter speed is a time that, lets in certain amounts of light, combination thereof. No, knowledge is that even that I don't know if that even starts to qualify as knowledge, understanding those, you could say, rudimentary basics, which are so important. And we have to learn them, but we have to forget them if we're going to keep moving forward. And that's what the knowledge has to be about, is the understanding that when we acquire information, and this information has to be not just trivia, because I have a ton of trivia. Doesn't mean I'm knowledgeable about any of that trivia. No. The trivia is just the stuff that starts the spark in which we go out and acquire more knowledge. And as we acquire more knowledge, we start building on that foundation, those basics. And that building of that knowledge in and of itself doesn't give us skill. So for example, I actually put up a post on Saturday, kind of relates to this. Had a marvelous group, bless their hearts there. They were there at 5:45 in the morning. They were ready to get out. And, you're in this nice, cool room. It's so cool in the room that I had to remind folks that they were going to have condensation, because if their gear was cool and we were about to go out and hit 80 degrees and 90% humidity, that there's going to be some condensation on that front element. There's the first little example of not having knowledge, knowledge, knowing that was going to happen, and then start applying some of the skill to mediate that about to happen condensation, so then you can actually go out and shoot. But no problem. Got through that. Lickety split. Little short walk just down this ramp to the actual river edge there in the Arkansas River at the Broad Street Bridge, which, if you're at any angle other than the right angle, it's kind of just a bridge. But then when you get at the right angle, the engineering that was put into it, the design to the curves really come to life. That was, I wasn't going for the typical photo walk where we kind of like, you look around and you hope you find something, and you find something, or you hope somebody else finds something you can copy. I actually wanted to kind of play, you could say, a little bit more on Robert's presentation, because I knew a number of those folks were in that room with me when Robert was presenting. And just build on that simple principle of knowledge isn't skill. And then how do you start actually getting knowledge to become skill? So in my example, and you can see the photographs there on the website, we were looking to the west at the Broadway Street Bridge. And we're looking at it before the sun came up. It had the glow of the sun in the horizon, but it hadn't come up yet. And with that, you had this really beautiful, even light on the entire scene, the bridge, the water, the sky. And the sky was bald. It was, slate bald. Now, how do you bring the fact that you're up at 6 a.m. and in this scenario to your photograph? At the same time, making somebody want to actually look at a photograph of a bridge. It's just a bridge. There's not any great, thing going on in the water, the sky. It's just a bridge. Well, I first planted the seed of thinking of it as a graphic. Just a graphic. Not a landscape shot, not a architectural shot, just a graphic. And with that in mind, how about that sky? What can we do with that totally bald sky which was going to end up filling half the frame if you want to have the reflection of the bridge in the water. What can you do with that literally empty space to bring someone, get them sucked into your photograph? Well, I instantly said, why don't we explore black and white? Which right off the bat, not a lot of knowledge about black and white. So even though they have it in their cameras, and there was a lot of Z shooters there, which was a lot of fun, going to monochrome, taking that photograph wasn't something that had really come across in their creative process. So then we go from talking about dealing with that sky by going black and white to now talking about our subject, which is going to be the graphic, which is the bridge. And with that even light, the bridge doesn't really smack the viewer between the eyes. Not really. It doesn't really come out to be a graphic at all. In all honesty, at 6 a.m., there wasn't really a shot in color. And black and white was kind of just a little bit of our knowledge base that we were going to work upon to build our skill. So in this case, just kind of, I could say we milled around for a little bit. I did a little bit of a hot air trivia and everything from the chimney swifts that were flying by and the muskrat and the river to talking about important things like light and bright and the mind's eye and how we see things and capture them and bring them back. And so you could say killing time, but I was also at the same time building their knowledge base so they'd have a little skill. So when the sun just barely started to come up over the horizon and start to light up this bridge, everybody still was shooting in black and white. They saw how all of a sudden the bridge, which was that soft early morning gray because it had no direct light on it, turned into this very white graphic. And then the sky, because the contrast or range of light between that bridge and that sky got to be this great, really great dark slate. And it all of a sudden the graphic of because the left side of the bridge was closer to the right, this vanishing line with these curves, and then you've got the actual bridge, then you had the reflection, and then boom, that knowledge base that we had started with in 20 minutes had grown into a skill of just taking some basic pieces of knowledge, which is black and white, light and bright, thinking of a graphic, that we instantly had a photograph that was not just a I was here photograph, but wow, look, I found this here. This is here. You should explore it as well. And that's the point of knowledge. So knowledge in itself shouldn't be confused as skill, but it should be thought of and constantly added to as the launching platform to which you build more skills. And as you build more skills, what's going to happen naturally? You're going to want to acquire more knowledge. And then as you acquire more knowledge, your skill is going to increase as you apply that knowledge that is truly relative to you and your visual storytelling. You start marrying those more and more, and then all of a sudden that knowledge is starting to overflow to the point where then the skill starts to overflow. And then what happens? You climb the next rung of the ladder as you improve as a photographer. So the moral of the story is you have to continually seek and acquire more knowledge. And the knowledge is not just f-stops and shutter speeds. And the knowledge is not doing your research and buying a piece of gear. It's knowledge that makes you, and the way you perceive the world and want to share it, that is really important in that photographic process. So acquiring knowledge can be done in a lot of different ways. You've got to find what works for you and how you want to acquire it, store it, organize it, remember it, which of course is the hard part, and then start to apply that knowledge to build your skills as that visual storyteller. So I want to thank Robert for making me think about that. I appreciate him helping me organize some of my thoughts in that process because he was so spot on. And hopefully that information helps you. And once again, I want to thank Bedford's and all the great folks who were there at the Photo Expo. I met some old friends. I met some new friends. Had some great conversations. And a number of really great conversations with folks whose parents had been somehow in World War II, either being logistics, which was a great story, or pilots, or all the things. I appreciate you sharing all those memories. And Sharon was asking me what was one of the highlights of the trip, and it was really hard just to nail one highlight because really it was all a highlight. Really, I mean, 48 hours. It just my throat was scratchy. I had been talking so much. One of the highlights, though, was Sarah Adams, who is the granddaughter of Ansel Adams. Know Sarah. I've known her for a long time, but I hadn't seen her. At least we couldn't figure out, maybe 15, 20 years, considering, we used to see each other quite a bit in the Eastern Sierras and Yosemite. But Sarah was there for an hour presentation on Ansel, and it was marvelous to see and understand some of the things that how he came to be what we think of today as Ansel Adams. Really great stuff. And all that really just came back and really underscored Robert's knowledge isn't skill, but it's where we all start. You folks have a really great week, and remember to make every click your story.